Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are just seeing me for the first time or you're just coming across my video for the first time, my name is Ifeoluwa and I'm an online fashion tutor. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to cut this bustier dress with Queen Anne's neckline. So if this is something you're interested in watching or learning, please stick around and watch this video to the end because it's going to be very explanatory and detailed. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do well to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, and also feel free to leave your questions or your comments in the comment section. Thank you very much guys. Now let's get started. So these are my measurements for this dress. I have my bust measurements, the waist measurements, the hip measurements, the bust points, the under bust, the front waistline measurements, the back waistline measurements, then the length, which is the length of the skirt, the across back measurements, the armhole circumference, the sleeve length, and then the sleeve width of this dress. Now I'm going to take my chest line measurements from that starting point, which is my armhole divided by 2, my armhole circumference divided by 2. Then I'm going to take my bust point measurements, I'm going to mark it there, and then the under bust measurements, then my front waistline measurement. So I'm going to do the same thing at the other side there and then connect everything together. So this is my shoulder line, the chest line, the bust point, the under bust, and then the front waistline. Now I'm going to take my across back measurement divided by 2, that is the shoulder to shoulder measurement divided by 2 on the shoulder line and then on the chest line. Then I'm going to connect those points together. Then from the shoulder line, I'm going to come down by 1 inch, and whatever I have left, I'm going to divide by 2 and mark that point. Then from that point, I'm going to come in by 0.75. Now on the chest line, I'm going to take my bust measurement divided by 4 and then I'm going to mark that point. Then those 3 points I'm going to create, with those 3 points I'm going to create my armhole curve. Now for my neckline, I'm going to use 3.5 inches for the neck width, and then for the neck depth, this one is not necessary. I won't need this at the end of the day, but let me just fix it here as 3 inches. Then I'm going to connect with my French curve, and I'm also going to connect my shoulder slants. So I'll label this side as my center front and the other side as my side front. Now on the chest line, I'm going to take my nipple to nipple measurement, that is the bust span. So I have 8 inches as mine, divided by 2, that is 4 inches. So I'm going to take it on the chest line and on the waistline, and I'm going to connect those points together. Now on the waistline, towards the center front, I'm going to take 0.5, and then towards the side front, I'll take 1.5 inches. I'm going to do the same thing on the under bust, and then I'm going to connect the points together with a straight line. After connecting with a straight line, I'm going to use my French curve to connect from the under bust to the bust points. Now I'm going to divide whatever I have on the shoulder slant by 2, and then I'm going to mark that point. Then from that point, I'm going to connect into the bust points. Now I can proceed to take my neck depth. So I'm going to be using 7 inches for mine, and then on the armhole area, I'm going to be taking 5 inches. Then I'm going to connect that using a straight line. So it's going to be a V neckline. You can make it a sweetheart neckline if you want. So it depends on the type of neckline you want. But I've done a sweetheart neckline before. Then this time around, I'm going to be going with a V neckline. The next thing to do is to prevent gaping on that neckline. So I'm going to be taking 0.5 inches on both sides. So that way it's going to be firm around the chest area. So I'm going to take it there and then connect to the bust points. Now for the Queen Anne's neckline, you can measure out how you want it to be, how wide you want it to be. So for mine, I'm going to make it 2 inches, which is I'm going to just leave it on that leg like that. On the dart leg that is there, I'm going to leave it there as 2 inches. Then I'm going to be connecting from that my shoulder there to that leg. So you can either make it curve like this or you can just make it straight. So I'm going to leave mine as straight. Now when you are cutting out, you can decide to cut out this part and make it the yoke. But then for this tutorial, I'm going to be cutting that out together. Now for this part, if this dart is interfering, you can just shift this line and shift it to the other side towards this, the center front, so that you'll be able to pick up another dart, so that it won't interfere with that line, that V line of the Queen Anne's neckline, of that yoke area. Now for my bust and my waist measurements, on this chest line, I already have my bust measurement divided by 4. Then whatever I have there, I'm going to replace it. I have about ½ inch there. Now on the waistline, I'm going to divide my waist by 4. I have 8 inches. Then I'm going to mark the point. Then whatever I have there too, which is about 2 inches, I'm going to replace it and put it on the waistline. Then I'm going to connect from that chest line to the waistline. Before I cut this out, I'm going to fold that neckline area so that I can be sure that this is equal by the time I cut it out on fabric, so that you won't have to be trimming out any excess which will make the neckline unbalanced. So I'm going to just draw out a new neckline now, as I've already folded it together. Then I'm going to proceed to cut out, but before I completely cut out, I forgot to show you how to add the side dart, so I'm going to do that right now. So for the side dart, I have my front waistline as 16 inches and my back waistline as 14 inches. So I'm just going to take that, the difference between that, which is 2 inches, I'm going to take it at the side there on the bust point. Then I'm going to connect it back into the bust point like that. So that is going to be the side dart. By doing that, your front and your back pattern will be aligned together by the time you want to join the sides together. Now I'm going to go ahead to cover that part up with my masking tape. Then I'm going to draw out a new line at the side there. So this is it for the front pattern of the bustier. Now let's move on to the back pattern. So the first thing I'm going to do is to mark out my zip allowance. So I'm going to be using 1 inch as the zip allowance, and I'm going to connect together. Then I'm going to take my chest line measurements and then the back waistline measurement. So my chest line measurement, which is the armhole divided by 2, and then the back waistline measurement, which is 14 inches. So this is the shoulder line, the chest line, and then the back waistline. Then I'll label this side the center back line. Now I'm going to take my across back measurement divided by 2 from that center back line. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the chest line and I'll connect together. On the shoulder line, I'll come down by 1 inch and then measure out whatever I have left divided by 2, mark that point, and from that point I'll come in by 0.5 inches. On the chest line, I'm going to take my bust measurement divided by 4 from that center back line. Then I'm going to connect those 3 points together with my French curve. Now I'm going to take my neckline measurement. I use 3.5 inches for the front width. That's the same thing I'm going to be using for the back pattern. So I'm going to mark that, and then for the length of the back, I'm going to be using 1 inch because we want the back to be high. So I'm going to connect that with my French curve and then proceed to connect the shoulder slants together. Now on the waistline there, I'm going to go in by 1 inch. So from that center back line, I'm going to go in by 1 inch and connect it back into the chest line. So this is going to be the new zip allowance. From the center back line, I'm going to measure out my dart. So I'm going to be using the same 4 inches I used at the front, which is the nipple to nipple measurement. Then I'll take 0.5 inches on both sides. On the chest line, I'm also going to take my dart, which is 4 inches. Then I'm going to connect together. So don't forget that you take the dart from the center back line, which is the original line, so that it's going to be equal. Then I'll connect my darts together. Now I already have my bust measurement on the chest line divided by 4. Then I'm going to take my waist measurements on this new point divided by 4 plus 1 inch that we used as the dart there. So divided by 4, which is 8 inches plus 1 inch for that, 9 inches. And I'm going to connect from the chest line to the waistline. So this is the back pattern, and then I'm going to proceed to cut out what I have. So guys, this is what I have for the front and the back pattern of the top part of the bustier dress. Now let's move on to the skirt part. So I'm going to be drafting the front pattern of the skirt part now. First thing I'm going to take is the hip depth, which is from my waistline to my hip. So I have 9 inches for mine. It ranges from 8 inches to 9 inches to 10 inches. So it depends on how large the hip is. So just make sure you measure out from your waistline to the largest part of your hip. Then after taking the hip depth, I'm going to take the length of the skirt. That is the length of the dress from the waist to the to wherever you want the length to be. Then I'm going to connect those points together. Now I'm going to take my waistline measurements divided by 4 plus 1 inch for that. So the skirt is going to have that. Then on the hip depth or the hip line, I'm going to be taking my hip measurements divided by 4. Now on the hem line, I'm going to be taking my hip measurements also divided by 4 minus 1.5 inches. So if you want your skirt to have a pencil look, you can just subtract 1.5 inches from the hip line, and then you mark it on the hem line. So I'm going to connect those points together. Then if you have a sharp curve there, you can just use the edge of your curve to just curve that part out so that it won't bulge out. So this is the waistline, the hip line or the hip depth, and then this is the hem line. Now I'm going to show you how to fix in your dart so that it's going to align to the bustier of this dress. So you can take the front pattern that way, and then you put it on the dress, on the skirt, and then you mark out what you have there, or you can just measure it out like this. I have 3.5. I'm going to put it there and mark out that 3.5. Then I'm going to go out by 1 inch. I'm going to take 1 inch away from that 3.5, and then I'll mark the midpoint like that. So that midpoint is what is going to be the dart leg. So I hope you understand. You take 3.5, you mark out 1 inch, and then you mark out the midpoint. So from that midpoint, I'm going to be taking the length of the dart. I'll be using 5 inches for this dart. So guys, this is it for the front pattern of the skirt part of this dress. Then I'm going to cut it out. Now for the back pattern, I'm going to bring out the zip allowance, which is 1 inch, and then I'm going to connect together. Now from the top there, I'm going to take my hip depth or the hip line, which is 9 inches, and I'm going to take the length of the skirts. So this is the waistline, the hip line or the hip depth, and then the hem line. Now for this skirt part, we're going to do the same thing that we did for the top part. So I'm going to be taking 1 inch away from the center back line of that skirt. From that line, I'm going to take 1 inch and then connect it into the hip line. So I'm going to call this the center back line also. So I'm going to connect that point into the hip line. So this is going to be the new zip allowance. Now from that new point of the waistline, I'm going to take my waist divided by 4 plus 1 inch for that. And then on the hip line or the hem line, I'm going to take my hip measurement divided by 4 from the center back line. I'm going to take my hip measurement from that point divided by 4. Then on the hem line, I'm going to take the same thing I did at the front, which is my hip measurement divided by 4 minus 1.5 inches. So I'm going to take it from that center back line and then connect everything together. So to fix in the darts for the back pattern of the skirt, we'll be using the back pattern of the top. So I'm just going to align everything together like as you see me doing, and then I'm going to mark out the darts like that. So it is very easy for you to do that way. So you align them from the zip allowance and then to the waistline area, so you can see how they are well aligned, and then you mark out the point of the darts. Now for this dart leg, from that midpoint, I'm going to be taking 6 inches. So that is going to be the length of the dart for this back pattern. Now I can proceed to cut out what I have. So guys, this is it for the pattern drafting of the front and the back of this dress. So I'm going to cut it out on my fabric now and add all the necessary allowances to it. But before I do that, I'm going to show you how to cut out the sleeve. So I'm going to be using a short sleeve for this dress. So for the sleeves, I'm going to measure out the armhole of the front and the back pattern. So for the front pattern, I have about 9.5 inches, and then for the back pattern, I have about 9 inches. So I'm going to add the two together and then divide by 2. So that is going to be the armhole. So I'm going to be using 9.25 as the armhole of this sleeve. Now I'm going to measure out the sleeve length, which is 8 inches. Then I'll add 1 inch for the hem line. Now to draw out the armhole curve on the sleeve, I'm going to come down by 4 inches there. Then I'm going to make my tape rule slant like this and measure out the 9.25 inches that we have as the armhole. I'm going to measure it out like that, then use my free hand to draw out a curve. Then on the hem line, I'm going to measure out the sleeve width. So I have 15 as the sleeve width, divided by 2, I have 7.5 inches. Now before I cut out, I'm going to add my allowance, my sewing allowance to this, to the armhole and then to the hem line. Then I'm going to connect together and cut out my sleeve. So this is it for the sleeve. Then I'm just going to notch that midpoint there. Now for the top part of this dress, I already cut out my fabric. So as you can see, this is the front pattern and the back pattern of the top part. So I cut out both fabric and the lining I'll be using, and that part I cut it out on fold, which is the center front. Then I added ½ inch allowance for those sides, and then this is the side. I added ½ inch also for those sides, and then for the side seam allowance I added 1.5 inches. For the armhole I added ½ inch, and the shoulder slants ½ inch. Now for the back pattern, I did not add anything for the zip allowance because we already have the zip allowance there. And then for the side, I added 1.5, and then the armhole ½ inch, upper parts ½ inch. So I did the same thing for the skirt pattern. This is the front pattern. I cut it out on fold, cut out both lining and then the fabric. So at the upper part, I added ½ inch, and then for the side seam, I added 1.5 inches. Then for the lower part, which is the hem line, I added 1.5 inches. The same thing goes for the back pattern. So for the zip allowance, I didn't add anything because we already have the zip allowance. I added ½ inch up there, 1.5 inches at the side, then 1.5 inches on the hem line. So guys, this is it for the drafting and the cutting of this bustier dress with Queen Anne's neckline. So watch out for my next video because I'll be showing you how to sew this dress from the beginning to the end. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do well to subscribe so that you can see my next video and turn on your notification button. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.